'Cause we're going through a lot of things now. Prayer is going to help us a lot to get through it in that relationship too. Just to reiterate some things we've been over every week. If you haven't registered with Dragonfly, please do so, because I'm sure if you've heard about our conference calls the last couple of weeks, and we just had one last Thursday, I'm probably 99.9% sure that's what we're going to be using next year. I'm going to start sending some stuff out on Dragonfly as a test module. So if you get it and I ask you to reply back to me or send me a note or something, please do so, where I'll know what's going on with that. I think it's going to be a good avenue for us. It's a little busy if you've been on there. It's a lot of buttons to push and things to look at, but I think it'll be real good. For you new umpires, the guys have just been on for a couple of times, if you do not have rule books, I did put one on here on a PDF file, wasn't it, Greg? I can't remember.
Yeah, PDF.
We've got that, and if you do not have it, I'll be glad to send it back to you. Also, the state said they had some rule books left over. They would be glad to send them to me, and then I'll get them out to you. So if you need some, just send me a note, or send me a text, or email something, and I'll try to get them. Now, you guys that got them last year, don't be calling me wanting a rule book. You better go find yours. Private school schedules have come out. I will start putting them in the arbiter this week and assigning games. So make sure your closeouts are up to date. Some guys have already sent, they've got some other obligations, during private school games, and they've already let me know. So make sure your closeouts are up to date, and because I'll start doing that probably this week. My goal is to have some assigned by Thursday. I got 5 different schedules on Saturday. So, that's what happened when you got EMS stuff all over the house. But like I said, I'll start doing those things next week. They're going to play a regular schedule. Guys, there's been some questions about private schools, and we've dealt with them in basketball also about wearing masks. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, I think it's a very good idea we wear our mask. Some private schools have already called. They're not going to wear masks. They want to know what we're going to do. I told them we'll probably wear our mask. We'll follow the protocol as dictated by the state of North Carolina. So just go ahead and be prepared, and we'll go from there with that. So,
hey, Mike.
Yeah, man.
Is that something where they've let you know that if we, like for me, I don't want to go work at a school that's not going to wear a mask? Is that something we can let you know?
Yeah, they're going to let me know prior to the season. Right now, I've only got one, and I'm still working on him.
Okay.
He and I had a long conversation Saturday afternoon late, or yesterday afternoon late, and he knows where I stand. He knows where our officials stand. So I told him I didn't want our people be put in jeopardy by anybody. So we'll get a list of those that aren't, but most of the private school associations are making them wear them. So I don't see any issues there right now.
Thank you.
I think they were just asking me a bunch of questions, see what I'd respond, and my generic response was, we will follow the guidelines by the state of North Carolina. That's all I kept saying. So we went from there. Any questions before I let Greg get loose on the rules here?
Can you send out a list of those private schools?
I will, once I get them put together. Yeah, I'll do that. They're still a work in progress. Any more questions? As John's asked, make sure you tap that attendance sheet. If you got a phone call and he don't know you, we'll get you at the very end. Okay? All right, Greg.
All right. Thank you, Mike. John, am I sharing?
Yes, you're clear.
Okay. Let me go to this.
You just want to make it full screen.
Is that good?
Go up to slideshow and present show.
Well, that's where I'm at now. I'm not in slideshow.
No, you
Yeah.
go up to the top and hit slideshow. Click on it. Where'd you go?
How's that?
That's
To the
right.
right of animations along that red line up top, Greg.
It's right above your PowerPoint.
Keep going over right there.
Right
You
there.
just-
There we go.
and then from the beginning.
There we go.
I'm sorry, John, you're in charge. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
We
you're
good?
good.
We good?
Did you click it?
Okay. Okay, guys, this is another iteration of some of the training that we've put together over the last couple
Click
of
it
weeks.
in,
All right, wait a minute.
I don't think you hit click from beginning.
All right, let's try it again.
Oh, go down there. Hit double click on that from beginning.
Well, I'm in slide mode. You guys are not in slide mode?
Nope. But I think at this point, if you've hit that button, I would just close your animation page and then we'll just keep going.
Okay.
Where it says animation pane, if you just close that, I think it'll make it big enough where we can see it.
All right.
There you go. I think that's as good as you're going to get quickly.
All right. Let's get rid of that. Done.
There you go. Now we're pretty good.
Okay. Okay, we'll try and not take up too much of your time tonight because I know it's Sunday night, it's 9 o'clock and it's late, and I know some guys have already worked this weekend. So this is just a continuation of what we've been doing over the past number of weeks in terms of, it's more of a refresher because I know a lot of you guys have been doing this for a number of years now, and I know we got some newer guys, so for the newer guys, hopefully you'll be able to keep up. But for the veterans, you guys who are out there, again, this is just a refresher to get us ready for the season. So tonight we're going to talk about interference part 2. We've already talked about interference part 1, which was batter interference. That included the batter interference, the follow through, the backswing, all those kinds of things. So tonight we're going to transition from the batter to the batter runner and the runner himself. So, oopsie daisy. Okay, so to the best of my knowledge, I think we already covered the administrative stuff. There haven't been any questions that I've received lately on any of the material that we presented in the past. So we'll just go ahead and jump into batter runner interference. And we're going to talk about two particular things: running lane violation and last step collisions at first base. There are other collisions out on the ball field, but we're just going to talk about last step collision at first base for tonight. And then we'll transition into runner interference. We'll talk about how a runner interferes with a fielder's fielding. We'll talk about illegal slides and hit by a batted ball, which should be fairly simple. Okay, so to start off with running lane violation, and again, this is a refresher for most of us. The lane constraint begins at the 45-foot mark. Anything that occurs prior to that is not really related to a running lane violation. So just remember, the 45-foot mark starts the constraint for the batter runner as he exits his at-bat and advances to first base. Real quick case play, we got bases loaded, B4 hits a ground ball to F3 inside the foul line. F3 throws to F2, but hits B4. B4 was in fair territory, but was not reached the 45-foot running lane. So as a result of not being in the running lane at that point in time, there's no violation unless there was something that was intentional by the batter runner. The batter runner is going to be out after reaching the 45-foot running lane, and he runs outside of that 3-foot lane. Now, he's considered to be outside the 3-foot lane if either foot is on either line. And that really relates to any issues that is caused as a result of F2 having to alter his position to make an attempted throw, alters F2's actual attempt to throw, or the batter runner being hit by the thrown ball, or if it potentially could cause F3, who is the recipient of the throw, to have his actions affected in some way, shape, or form. And in all cases, it's going to be a delayed dead ball situation. And the reason why is because we want to afford the defense the opportunity to make a defensive play or multiple plays. So we're giving them an opportunity for a put out. The batter runner put out opportunity, once that is over, then we transition from a live ball to a dead ball. And then the infraction is ignored if there is no interference with the fielder's throw. So that's kind of a high level summary of the running lane violation. So I tried to maybe generate a couple visuals here. It all depends on the angle. So if you take a look at the red area, that's really a ball that's fielded right around front of home plate. Any ball fielded there, there is a high probability that if the batter runner is outside of the running lane, we're going to get a running lane violation called on the batter runner. As the ball gets pushed out to the infield, farther away from home plate, okay, now that opportunity for running lane violation starts to diminish because we have a different angle from the catcher over to first base. And then in the blue area, it's pushed out even farther. Could we still get one? We could, but in all probability, not from that angle. So it's all about angles. You know, do we have an angle that will prevent the catcher from making a play, prevent the first baseman from receiving the play, all the way out to other angles where the running lane, the position of the batter runner outside of the running lane has no effect on the play. So here's another graphic that we show. So anything in the red area is in front of the home plate. You know, if the batter runner is outside the running lane, there's a high probability that we may have a running lane violation. And again, as we push out towards the infield, those probabilities diminish. So just keep in mind your angles when you're looking to make a running lane violation call. So there are a couple of videos that I put together. Our first one here is we have the ball that's picked up in front of the home plate area. The catcher has to make an adjustment because our batter runner is outside of the running lane. He's being pushed further and further to the infield to the point where he is now well beyond the area where he initially had picked up, fielded the ball in front of home plate. So that's a fairly good example, a fairly good signature where the running lane is causing our catcher to make some type of adjustment, and we can go ahead and call running lane violation on a play like that. So here's our first video. Let's go ahead and take a look. Whoops, whoa, let's go back up. I'm not in PowerPoint. There you see our catcher. He's being pushed out, pushed out, pushed out. That should be a fairly easy call for a bunch of us, most of us, all of us, hopefully. And I put a little bonus question down there. Please remember, we also have to umpire other aspects of this play. So if we have a play like this where the ball is now out and about somewhere, we also have to be mindful of our batter runner. Is our batter runner rounding first? Is he attempting? Is he feinting towards second? If he is, at that point in time, that feint puts him in jeopardy of being put out. So another thing for us to look for in this play. Here's another one. This is from the 2019 World Series with the Nats. This is the Trey Turner play. This is a really good angle. He never got inside the running lane. So I'd like to think that too is also a fairly easy, fairly obvious call to make. They're not all going to look like that. They're going to have different signatures. So the home plate umpire is the one who really is the key here in picking up this running lane violation. So if you see him out there, let's go ahead and see if we can get that call. And our last clip, this is at the collegiate level. We're not going to worry about their rule, but again, this is a fairly good, obvious call where our runner is outside of the running lane and now is interfering with our pitcher's ability to make a throw to our first baseman. Now, about the throw itself, again, when he runs outside the 3-foot running lane, the question is, what is the component of the throw? Does the throw have to be an accurate throw? Does the throw have to be to first base? And that's actually not that well defined in the rule book, but it is documented in the case book. Unfortunately, it goes back to 2010, where we have an example here where B1 lays down a bunt in fair territory in front of home plate. The attempted throw to first is high and to the right. It tries to not hit the B1, or he doesn't attempt to throw. So that's what our catcher is doing. In situation A, he's attempting to throw, and B, he's not. The case play says that a throw is required in order for, or an attempted throw, as well as the throw itself, is required in order for us to call a running lane violation. In example B, where there is no attempt, well, if there is no attempt, then there is no interference. The interference call is to protect the attempt for the putout. If a putout is not attempted, then we don't have any interference call to make. What we do as umpires, we have to judge the quality of the throw, because we don't want to reward an errant throw by the defense. If the catcher picks up the ball and for whatever reason throws it to the right fielder, that's not a quality throw in the direction towards first base. So obviously we would not make that call on the running lane violation. So there has to be an attempt, there has to be a throw, and it has to be in the general direction of first base. So now we move into last step collision. So there are generally 3 scenarios that I've tried to capture here as to how a last step collision would occur. The first one is with a running lane violation, which we've just seen. So we've got a running lane violation, we have an attempted play at first, it's close, and we have a collision. The second potential last step, and this again, the last step that the batter makes before he touches the bag. We're not talking about being 10 feet away or 15 feet away. We're actually talking about the last step, maybe at most step and a half. So our batter runner is running legally inside the running lane, and he exits the running lane during his last step in an attempt to advance to second or third base, and that is legal. And then the last type of collision that we might normally see is if we have an errant throw by a fielder and the throw is thrown to the inside of first base into the batter runner's base path. So these are kind of the scenarios that we have when we have a last step collision at first. What are our potential calls? Well, it can range to a no call. It is incidental contact. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. It could be an interference call, for instance, our running lane violation, or it could be intentional in some way, shape, or form. I can think of the A-Rod chop. That's not really a last step, but it's intentional. Or you could actually have malicious contact. So that's another type of call that we could make for these last step collisions. And then there's actually obstruction. To be honest with you, I think that is probably fairly uncommon. I think we would most likely have an interference call, or we most likely would have a no call. The obstruction call would be pretty rare for us to call. Not impossible, but rare. So here are our 3 scenarios. We have last step collision as a result of the running lane violation. So we've already talked about this. Our runner is outside. We have a collision. The last step does not afford the batter runner any protection. He should have been in the running lane. So as a result of any collision for a play at first base, we have a running lane violation. We have a delayed dead ball. The batter runner is going to be out. And we're going to return any other runners who are on base back to the bases at the time of the pitch. Our second example is where we have our batter runner who is inside the running lane. So he's running legally to first base, and he steps into fair territory in order to make an advance. Well, this action in itself is not considered a running lane violation. It is considered the normal progression of a batter runner's advance to the next base. So in this particular case, we could have, with a last step collision, again, a no call. And if it's a no call, the ball's going to be live and we're going to play on. Both players are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And as we go through that play, don't forget there are other responsibilities and other things that we need to observe, to include the touch. If we have a collision, did we have a touch at first base, and what was the position of the other runners at the time of the collision? Again, obstruction, I think, is going to be a fairly rare call. And again, interference, but only if interference is judged intentional or malicious by the umpire. And if it is interference, intentional and malicious, the difference there is it's now an immediate dead ball versus a delayed dead ball situation. And then our last step example is when we have an errant throw from an infielder. You know, we might have someone, the third baseman, the shortstop. More than likely, those are the plays that I'm really talking about, where the throw goes wild to the inside and into the batter runner's base path. So now that's going to make that contact even more, potentially more violent. And again, here we have our three options. It's going to be either a no call, an obstruction call, again, rare, or an interference call. And again, only interference if it's judged intentional or malicious. And again, just remember, if it's an interference call, it's an immediate dead ball. If it's no call, then it's a live ball and play on. So here we have two examples. Let's go ahead and run through these. These are last step collisions. Our first one is really running lane related. You know, we want to afford our fielder, our first baseman, the opportunity to field his position and field the throw. And again, the runner is outside the running lane, so he's where he should not be. So this should hopefully be a fairly easy call. And let's take a look at our next video. This is an errant throw. This is the best example I can find. It was kind of hard to try and find something from third base or short, so this is the next best thing. And again, our players were doing what they should be doing. So as a result, we as umpires then need to judge whether or not there was any intentional intent or malicious contact. If not, then this just may be incidental contact, and we're going to play on. And if we do play on, just remember we have to manage other elements of the play, whether if it's the touch of the base, where's the ball, where are the other runners, is our runner going to feint to first, or is he going to return back to first? So there are a lot of things for us to look at for these types of plays. So I'll stop there for a short break and see if Mike or John have any questions or comments, or Aaron, before we move on to our next segment.
Any questions, guys? We won't debate. We won't debate. Plate umpire to make this initial call. We don't want the first base guy to make this call unless it's very, very obvious. So that guy working the plate making this call because he's looking up the backside and he can see if he's in the 45 or not.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Somebody flushing the toilet.
Okay, so now,
Greg, this is Macon.
go ahead, Macon.
Can I ask you to clarify something for the group? Would you define specifically that 3-foot runner's lane? So the question that some people might have: what if the batter runner is running on the foul line? Would he be considered inside the runner's lane or outside of the runner's lane? So would you just expand on that just for a second?
Sure. That's a good question. The line itself is part of the running lane, both the inside line and the outside line. So in order to be judged outside of the running lane, the runner's foot has to be completely outside, inside the infield, outside of that line in order to be in a running lane violation situation. So if his foot is on the line, he is still considered to be inside the running lane. And that's no different than when we manage a batter in the batter's box. The batter's box lines are part of the batter's box. The running lane line is part of the running lane. Good question.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay, so now we shift. We talked about batter interference. We talked about batter-runner interference. So now let's talk about a runner. We now have a runner on base. So we're going to talk about some of the things, some of the violations that our runner can cause, and then there are other violations that aren't related to interference calls. So let's quickly try and go through that. So we have runner interference. What is that? Well, generally, usually, normally, most of the time, this is going to be when a runner will interfere with a fielder's fielding opportunity. Or it may be related to an illegal slide coming into a base. And then there's some running violations. We probably won't address a lot of that tonight because those should be fairly obvious, whether if he runs outside of the base path, if he's hit by a batted ball, or if he passes an unobstructed runner. Those are other types of violations, which I think are fairly well understood by a lot of us. Runner interference for fielding. Guys, there are a lot of words on this chart. You know, the thing here, the takeaway is when he intentionally interferes with his fielder's ability to field or a thrown ball. So he's hindering a fielder, particularly on his initial attempt. And this is going to be umpire judgment because we're going to talk about the difference between a fielder's initial attempt versus him misplaying it, because the protection shifts. On a fielder's initial attempt, it doesn't really matter, not to a large degree, it doesn't really matter where the ball is as long as it's within the proximity of the fielder. And if a runner interferes or impedes a fielder's ability to field the ball, then we have interference on the runner on his initial attempt. If the fielder misplays it and the ball remains within a step and a reach, this is now a second attempt to field the ball, and the rules change. So the ball has to be within a step and a reach rather than maybe 5 or 6 feet away, as we would see on his initial attempt. So the protection shifts. He's allowed to, if he misplays it, he is still protected if the ball is within reach. If the ball is no longer within reach, then that protection is lost. If two fielders are fielding, we as umpires are going to have to judge which one of the fielders we are going to designate as being protected, and that fielder will get the protection for any type of runner interference. The penalty for runner interference, we're going to have an immediate dead ball. Our runner is going to be out. There is a possibility for 2 outs if the interference prevented a double play. Runners are going to return, and the batter runner, the person who started the play, he's going to be awarded first base unless he is part of that double play. So we talked about the initial attempt and the step and a reach, and here are the general differences. The initial attempt is a fielder's first fielding attempt. He is protected. Distance between the fielder and the ball is really a secondary factor. The ball may be noticeably farther away than it would be in a step and a reach. It's going to be umpire judgment as to how far we're going to extend that protection. There is a chance for an obstruction call, so you have to be careful of that. And all that's codified in the rule book. For a step and a reach, again, the difference is that is a secondary fielding attempt. The fielder is protected, but he is not protected. He is only protected when the ball is within a step and a reach. So the location of the ball relative to the fielder is now becoming a primary factor as to whether or not we will continue to extend the protection to the fielder. Our judgment is less of a factor because it is it is in the casebook in particular as to what a step and a reach is. I wish it were better defined in our rule book, but actually you can find better language in the casebook. And it is an accepted high school interpretation. Just for us folks who do college baseball, it is much more clearly defined in the collegiate rule book than it is in the high school rule book. You kind of have to go to the casebook to get the step and reach, but it is codified as an accepted call in high school baseball. So here are two plays where we have runner interference on our fielder's ability to field the ball. Let's go ahead and play both. And the announcers got it right. And the announcer is fairly right. It is the responsibility of our runner, Tulowitzki, to make sure that he does not interfere with the defense's ability to field the ball. Our second play. That's another fairly good example. Again, I didn't put up the disclaimer. A number of these videos are from collegiate or MLB, which are 2- and 3-man crews. This is our third base umpire, which we don't have at the high school level, but this could have been a play between first and second, between second and third. So I'd like to think that that's fairly obvious and a fairly easy call for all of us. I'm going to have to take that out so I can show that. Not all of them are as easy as the two examples that we just saw. So let's take a look at two more challenging calls. I think everyone would agree that we would have interference, but they are a little bit more challenging. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. So there's his making his initial attempt. So again, there's some judgment involved here. The fielder is attempting to field the batted ball. The runner has the obligation to avoid. Where's the ball? Where's the fielder? Where's the runner? You take all that in and you make a call. A little bit harder of a call, but I think this would be a good runner interference call. And then our second example. Ignore the announcer, that's wrong. So believe it or not, they did conference because the initial call was that he was safe. For whatever reason, our umpire had decided that he was not out, so the initial call was safe. They conferenced, and then they decided that A.J. Pollock would be declared out. And I don't know whether if you caught it in the last half second of the video, the umpire also pointed over to first base for an out at first base. So there's an example where we have a potential double play. We have our runner interfering with our second baseman's ability to field the ball for a potential double play. So as a result, the umpire's called 2 outs on that play. And then we have one more example I'd like to show. So so the ball was hit off of the pitcher's foot, and now we have a fielder who's attempting to field the deflected ball. And the question is, does the deflection have anything to do with the play? And the answer is no, it does not. The deflection is not a fielding opportunity by the pitcher. It's a deflection. So now our fielder still has an opportunity and has the right to be protected to field the batted ball and our runner has an obligation to avoid the fielder so that he can cleanly field the ball. So, you might ask yourself, well, do I have interference or obstruction? I think I don't have a problem with this being an interference call rather than an obstruction call. And if you take a look at our previous play that we had at third base, the two are fairly similar. Is the ball right near the fielder? It is not. Is it approaching the fielder? It is. Just like in our deflection, the ball was deflected towards our fielder, so the fielder still, even with the deflection, had the opportunity to field the ball. So therefore, he should be extended protection on that play. Runner need not vacate his base to permit a fielder to catch a fly ball in the infield, so the base affords the runner some protection, but while on base, he may not interfere. So here we have a case play where we have a runner on third, 1 out, 1-1 count on the batter. Our batter hits a fly ball near the third baseline. R3 interferes with F5 in his attempt to catch. We're going to have an immediate dead ball because it's an interference call. Our runner at third, R3, is going to be declared out because of the interference. And B4 is going to remain at bat with a 1-ball, 2-strike count. So again, I'll stop there and see if Mike, Macon, John, or anyone has any questions or comments before we move on to our next segment. Okay. All right, we're almost done. I said this would try and get this to be a little short tonight. Okay, so the next big play that I'd like to address is runner interference, and in particular, illegal slides. These are fairly charged plays. I really don't think there's as much judgment as maybe some of the coaches think, because we clearly have criteria as to what a slide is legal and what's illegal, and what we do under those circumstances. So here are all the things that a runner can do that are legal. You can slide feet or head first. Leg has to be on the ground. Buttock shall stay in contact with the ground. And they must slide within reach of the base with either the hand or the foot. I might point out, though, that when they do slide within reach, the in reach part of this rule only applies to non-force plays. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. He can run in the direction away of the fielder, but he's attempting to avoid making contact or altering the play. The jumping, the hurdling, the leaping, all that stuff is legal as long as our fielder is lying on the ground. If he is not, then those things then become illegal. So here are some of the illegal things. Pop-ups, not legal in high school baseball. Feet above the fielder's knee. These are safety-related rules that are in place. Unlike college baseball, where it's the protection zone is a butterfly on either side of the base, inside, outside. In high school, it's a horseshoe. So the protected zone is on either side as well as behind the base. So any fielder sliding into second and sliding beyond the base and makes contact with a fielder who's attempting to make a play, that is an illegal slide on our runner's part. And then obviously any slashing and kicking, those kinds of things, those are all illegal. We try and make sure that, we protect our fielders from any type of injury. Now, we talked about the force play. On a force play, a slide does not slide on the ground and in a direct line between two bases. A runner is never, ever required to slide. But if he does slide, it has to be legal. When there is no force, let's say the slide is on R2 going into third, then he can slide within, a reach, arm or a leg reach. That's legal as long as his slide is legal. But when we have a force situation, on a force play, the slide must be in a direct line between the two bases. So he can't slide to the inside, can't slide to the outside. Although if we judge he slides to the outside to avoid a fielder, we let that go. But generally on a force play, you have to slide in a direct line between the two bases. So here are a couple videos on some illegal slides coming into, mostly they're all into second. I'd like to think that we would call this with the greatest of ease, because you can see he's not attempting to make second base. He's attempting to take out the fielder. And again, you know, there are a number of rules in the high school, at the high school level. These are safety rules, and they really want us to protect the players, and it's our job to protect the players. So on that one, you might even get malicious contact. Next play into second. You know, so again, this is at the MLB level. They did not call it, but at the high school level, I think that is something that we have to call at the high school level. So the key here is, please remember, are they attempting to achieve the base? If they are not attempting to achieve the base, you now have a runner who's potentially performing an illegal slide, which would be runner interference. So try and keep that in mind. Is he attempting to achieve the base in which he's advancing to? And our last example. So you could, he's close, but at the last second, he deviated to the inside. Where's our fielder? Our fielder is on the inside. That's number one. And number two, the video doesn't show it as well. Our runner, R1, actually sticks his elbow, his arm out to also alter, impede, interfere with our fielder's ability to make a play. So he actually did two things. He veered off at the last minute, and then he stuck his arm out to interfere with the play. You only can call it once, but that was two different types of violations. Takeaway from this at the high school level, this is never, ever, ever accepted. Again, these are safety rules that are in place to protect not only the runner in this case, but also our catcher. So this is never accepted at the high school level. There are times when we do see contact, and the contact is actually legal, and that contact is generally when the contact occurs in front of the bag. But even though there is contact in front of the bag, we as umpires have to judge whether or not it's legal or illegal. We talked about a runner not required to ever slide, but if he comes in standing up, the question is that legal? And the answer is no, not if we as umpires judge that him coming in standing up, even though there may not have been any contact, interfered, altered our fielder's ability to for a put out. Then there are times when we actually have contact in front of the bag, and we give a protection area, as we mentioned earlier, on either side and behind. But as you can see, there's no protection in the front. Well, it's fair game for any contact in front of the bag, so long as the contact is not malicious. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first play here. Is our player is going to come in standing up to second base, and our umpire is going to go ahead and call him out. Whoops. No slide. He comes in mostly up. So judgment call as to whether or not you think this runner had interfered. Our umpire did. Our umpire is telling our coach that he went right into the fielder. So, but that's the only example that I could find where he's coming in standing up. So regardless of whether he had slightly gone into the fielder, you have to make a judgment as to whether or not his upright position had hindered or impeded our fielder's ability to turn two. Our second example is we now have actual contact in front of the bag. So the question is this contact permissible? And the answer is it is, as long as the slide is legal and there's no malicious contact. So here we have two examples of contact in front of the bag. Our first one is at second base. Our second one is at third base. Let's look at our first example. Yeah, ignore whether if it's safe route. The intent here is to show that there's contact in front of the bag and that contact is legal because the slide is legal. Then our second example, this is our play at third. That contact is legal because he is in front of the bag. So again, unless the contact is malicious in any way, shape, or form, you can have contact in front of the bag as long as it's a legal slide. And then just as a bonus, if we go back to our first play, let me take you. Do you think he was actually safe on this play? So let's take a look. I slowed the video down. Here we go. Not this one. Not this one. Wait. Here we go, right here. Take a look. Slow the video down. Possession is now. Where's his foot? It's off the bag. Good call. Good call by our second base umpire. All right, we talked about a pop-up slide. What does it look like? So here's an example. He's down, comes up. He now interferes, impedes. So that's our pop-up slide. And in high school baseball, pop-up slides are illegal, so we would go ahead and call him out. And on this particular play, there was a runner who had scored. So if we have an illegal slide into second because of the pop-up, our runner's going to be out, and we're going to take that runner who scored and put him back on base. Big penalty. Not going to cover too much here. I think everyone knows out of the base path. The big takeaway here is that there has to be an attempted tag in order to get this call. If there is no attempted tag, then we don't have any out of the base path call to make. So just keep that in mind. I think we all know this about a runner who's hit by a batted ball before it passes a fielder. That's an immediate dead ball. Passing a runner, I'll pass on this, no pun intended. But we have a video here that shows we have runners passing runners. The key takeaway here is this is a delayed dead ball situation. So when you get a runner passing another runner, it's a delayed dead ball. The runner who passed the runner in front of him is immediately out, but the play is still live, and additional outs can be made in addition to the out on the passing of the runner. And Mike and John, that's it for tonight. Does anybody have any questions or comments? And if you don't have any questions or comments tonight, you're more than welcome to email me or call me, and we can chat on anything that you'd like to talk about. Thank you. And John, I guess I'll turn the screen back over to you.
Yeah. And Logan had a question. So if a runner is standing on the base and the ball is hit at the base and the fielder runs into the runner while he's on the base, is that interference?
What do you think?
If he's on the base, then he's protected.
Correct. So the base does afford a runner protection. A runner is not required to vacate his base to allow a fielder to field a batted ball. So the interference, if there's an interference call, then a runner is only out if the interference is intentional. Now, if the runner were hit by the ball while standing on the base, he potentially could be put out. He could be out depending upon where the fielder was at the time of the play.
All right, Alan Banks, you had the floor.
Go ahead, Alan.
You got to unmute yourself. He
Unmute
may
him,
have hit the
John.
button by accident. I can't unmute him.
They ain't left.
No, he's still here.
Alan, hit the microphone at the bottom.
Hit the mic at the bottom. It's Curtly. There you
All
go.
I got you. Greg, some of that wasn't, the information was good, but some you didn't cover. In a two-man system, and when the runner's going into second base, it is the plate umpire's responsibility to see that interference, correct?
Yes, in high school, most of our regular season work will be two-man mechanics. So if you have a forced play violation situation at second, you have an potential interference call at second. That plate guy should be coming out from behind the plate to make that call. If I have had games where the base guy made the call, okay, that's fine. If the base guy doesn't make the call, that's understandable because he now got to divert his attention from second base to first for the backside of that play. So, yeah, the home plate guy can go ahead and take that call.
Anybody else? All right, good job, Greg. All right, a few housekeeping items before we can finish up tonight. Number one, the state clinic is already online. Make sure you go watch it in its entirety and follow the prompts at the very end. That'll tell you what to do to get credit for the state clinic. I do have an open date, I think, for the test. John Dow, do you know when the test is opening? I'll get that to you.
I think he said the 29th of March.
I believe that's right. I didn't hear him. So the test, if it's like basketball, it'll stay open a long time. So make sure you get on there and get it done. You only get one time, one shot at it. So make sure you make that 85 or above on that. Secondly, guys, and I know this is a sore spot with some of you. When you register with the North Carolina High School Athletic Association, and when you register with me, the SSOA or ACUA, you're not guaranteed any games. You're not guaranteed a state final. You're not guaranteed a state playoff game. So please remember that when you start sending me nasty emails and nasty phone calls and nasty text messages, I'm not going to hear them. I'm not going to listen to them. When you send your registration in, please read at the bottom what it says. It says you are not guaranteed any assignments of any type, and I can remove you from any assignment at any time that I feel the need to for your well-being and my well-being. And when you register with the state of North Carolina, it's also in there, the same disclaimer when you register. So please pay attention to that. And if you're going to get upset because you're going to work a high school game that's not what you wanted, I'm sorry. That's what you're going to get. That's where I needed you that particular game. Every game is important. Every game is important to somebody. Okay? I treat every game like it's the seventh game in the World Series. So that's the way you need to treat these games. Lastly, I know Matthew Popkin is on here. Matthew is in Raleigh tonight, getting ready for knee surgery tomorrow. Please keep him in your thoughts and prayers. I think he goes in at 7:45 for prep in the morning, and they'll go in there and open him up sometime, probably around 9 or 10 o'clock. So keep him in your thoughts and prayers tomorrow. Okay. Remember, our next clinic's next Sunday, 9 o'clock, and we'll get things rolling again. Okay. Thank you, guys.
The state clinic, I posted the website address. It is not on Dragonfly. It is, you have to go to the NCHSAA website.
Yeah.
So I left that, I put that site up there for you.
Okay.
And if you are the unknown person who is on here, I don't have you registered. So you need to let me know who you are. And then I need those on the phone that I didn't get earlier to stay on. So if your digits end in 38, 34, 68, 89, or 94, hold on.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. See you next week.